Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit ActiveDay.com to apply.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to The Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome back to The Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos. I'm a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are just so important to me, and that's why I love hosting this show for you every single Tuesday evening. I believe that every song is a story. Tonight, I'm so excited to have on the show Josh Christina. His musical journey is one of passion, dedication, and reverence for the greats. His love for piano rock began at just 7 years old, sparked of course by Elvis Presley's music in Lilo and Stitch and cemented by the theatrical brilliance of Million Dollar Quartet.
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
Welcome to the show. How you doing, Josh?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So you got kind of a cool story. Tell the audience a little bit about how you got started down this crazy road making music.
Yeah, well, as you said, I heard Elvis when I was 7, and my parents took me to see Lilo and Stitch with no intent of it being, to expose me to Elvis Presley. It was just, I was 7 and it was the kids' movie to go see. And I heard, Heartbreak Hotel, and I heard Hound Dog and Suspicious Minds. And it the sound, his voice, everything blew my mind. So that's kind of what got me into music initially. Because of that, I went to New York when I was 15 to see Million Dollar Quartet, which is about a real-life jam session that happened December 4th, 1956. It's on records with Elvis and Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and, of course, Jerry Lee Lewis. And the guy playing Jerry Lee kicked the stool out of the piano at the end and jumped on it and played it backwards, and I was hooked on that. So I wanted to learn to, I kind of picked up the piano from there, and that's kind of, the rest, I guess you could say, is history.
Yeah. Is the piano your main instrument then?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I play. I can play a little bit of drums, mess around with bass a little bit, tiny bit of guitar, but pianos, I do all my writing on piano and everything.
Tell us a little bit about your process. How do you get started writing a song?
Yeah, so it just depends. It can be I can be somewhere and hear something that I think would be a good hook. It can be I come up with a chord progression I like that I want to put lyrics to. It can be a few songs I've written have been the first line of a song. There's just been some catalyst somewhere, some line, something I heard, something I came up with that, I just kind of go from there and then tell the story from there. The story just builds. So it really just depends. Usually I always write the lyrics and music together. I'm not really one to write one without the other, except like I said, if I come up with a cool progression or something, but then I'm right there at the same time trying to put lyrics to it. So I usually don't come back later. I kind of do it when I'm there. But it just depends. It's probably 2 or 3, 4 different ways of how it comes together.
And do you have any confidence how you decide if something you make is going to make it the light of day? Anyone you run it by, or how does that work for you?
Not really. I won't say there's anybody I run it by. I think usually what I do is I come up with a song. I'll record a rough demo, and I'll put the lyrics, and I have a binder I keep in my piano bench. And when it comes time to do an album or do a single, I open it up and I go through it. And I sit there and I listen back to the demos and I look at the song. And sometimes I'll add to the song. I'll take away from the song. I'll change some stuff up. And then I think, if it's going to be an album, I'll find, 8 or 10 songs that I think work well together. Maybe they're similar but different enough where, the album sounds cohesive, but, not everything sounds exactly the same. Of course, you want to have some diversity on the album. But usually, I'm not one just to write. I know some people write every day. I usually write when I hear an idea. So I can write 3 songs in a week and then not write for 2 months and then write a song and not write for 6 months. I think over COVID, I didn't write at all for a year and a half. So it just depends. Usually though, when I do write, it kind of usually they always make their way out. Maybe not in the order I wrote them in, but they kind of always somehow make their way out, whether I revamp them or not.
Do you have any advice for people that are learning to play the piano or someone in that intermediate beginner stage?
That's always a tricky question because a guitar player and I actually had a discussion about this just a few days ago. We were saying that, at some point as a musician, when you've been doing it long enough, you kind of forget that beginner stage, that struggling stage. And it's not that it wasn't there, but you just kind of forget, how to tackle that. I've had people ask me to show them stuff on piano and I'll break down something for them or show it to them. And it just kind of, I just run through it, and then they ask you to explain it and get, it's kind of hard for me to break it down now because I've done it so just, it's just muscle memory and it's part of what I do now for so long. So I think that it's a hard question to answer because I think everybody's different. I will say that, I love piano, I love music, and I think that anybody should, pursue whatever instrument they want to do. And I think piano, if you're going to do it, find an artist you like, find a style you like, find a song you like that, ignites that spark to play it, and stick to it and just grill in on it and dig in, find out what you can about the artist or about the style of playing you want, and kind of figure out the roots of that style. I think that's the best way to start.
So how often do you practice at this point?
It does depend. I probably play almost every day, and whether that's just playing, original songs, writing, or, some cover I like, or, working on a lick. But also, like, if I'm traveling on the road playing, like when I work some cruise ships and stuff, and when I'm out there doing that, I'll be going for a week and a half. I'll do my 2 headline shows, so I might not touch a piano for 4 or 5 days until my show night. So it just depends. If I'm home, probably every day, even if it's 10 minutes, I'm at least touching it once a day. It just depends.
Tell us about the song we're going to hear. What inspired this one?
So Never Out of Mind is an interesting story. A few years back, I had written a song called Old Piano. And the idea of Old Piano was a piano kind of telling its life story, and if it could write a letter to the current people that own it. And I love the concept so much of like this inanimate object coming to life that one night I was at the piano and I just started thinking, what about if other things could come to life? And so I kind of started playing something in this minor key and putting lyrics to it. And it became this dark, kind of beautiful song, this real reflective song, basically, maybe as bad as things could be in your life, or something like, if these things could talk, if these walls could talk, if a battlefield could feel what was going on it, things like that. It just became this really deep song, which I didn't expect it to become that deep of a topic, really. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of build off an idea I had another song and apply it to something else. And now here we are. And I love the way it came out.
Tell you what, let's take a listen to it, and then we'll come back and talk some more, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome, everybody. Check this out. Here we go.
In a cold, lonely tavern outside of Baltimore, man sits down from a stage with the court. Told his buddies he'd lost the case. You could see the despair in his face. Heard him say if only those walls could talk, or the floor could feel the stomping of a walk. What a shame it'd be if they could think the hell they've seen would drive them to drink. Got me thinking about things over time. There's a lot worse things that shouldn't have a mind. Like a bullet in John Wilkes Booth's gun when it pierced our nation's chosen one. The sands on the shores of Normandy Beach, the nails in the cross where Jesus hung, or the bullet of a lonely gun when it takes the life of another mother's son. There's a lot worse things that man designed when you think about about it, sure I'm glad they were blind. And they were lucky to never have a mind. He said, if only that bed could feel all those nights we made love and it wasn't real. If the pictures on the walls could observe, if the door frames had nerves. One of his buddies said, I fought in the war. There's a lot worse things that shouldn't have a mind to its core. Like a missile flying to a town in the east where innocent children are at peace when they're trying to put your worried mind at ease. A rifle aimed at another man trying to protect each other's homeland, the ground where they're taking their final stand. There's a lot worse things that man designed. When you think about it, sure I'm glad they were blind. And they were lucky to never have a mind. A confession booth out alone to church. Damn those curtains, they heard of the worst. The back alleys where people are getting coerced. Dates that man gave a tragic distort, like 1968, April the 4th. Yeah, the world still cries and mourns. There's a lot worse things that man designed. When you think about it, sure I'm glad they were blind. And they were lucky to never have a mind.
So thank you so much for sharing that song with us.
Of course.
So I have a question for you. It seems like you do a few gigs. Do you have any secret for booking gigs or promoting shows that you want to share with the audience?
I mean, I think persistence in a healthy way is one way to go about it. If there's a place you want to play or a booker you want to work with or whatever, I think it's good to kind of stay on their radar or, keep in touch with those people, but obviously not to over push. If there's a venue and, your local town or something you want your band to play or you want to play for a writer's night or whatever, it's hard to get in. I think, you shouldn't, pester people, but I think you should, have healthy persistence in doing it. I know, over the years of playing music, I've always lucked out when you build relationships, you build the friendships, and you just keep staying on people's radar, and you kind of, work off other musicians, people become your friends, you kind of musicians helping musicians. I think there's a lot of organicness that goes on too with booking. And of course, obviously you can get with an agent. I mean, that's even better. But, I've been very lucky to get with a few agents in my life, and it's just through that same thing. Just, kind of going through the system, going through the motions, meeting people, staying in front of people. I think being patient, but also, like I said, healthy persistence it's the way to get the job done.
Do you remember your first public performance?
Yes, I do.
All right, tell us about that. How'd it go?
Well, there's two parts of the story. So the first part, my very, very first public performance, I was 10 years old, and my mom was a local singer around town. So she had a band, and me and a buddy of mine did a Blues Brothers impersonation act. We were 10. We called ourselves Blues Brothers. And
All right.
had a big party every year with like 200 or 300 people. So we did that there. So that was my first performance in front of people doing something musical. I was Elwood. I played harmonica and sang. My first performance, though, what I'm doing now, I was 17 years old, and it was a place called Lee's Tavern up in Parkton, Maryland. It was a little bar. They probably legally held maybe 50 people, and we were playing there once a month, and were packing in like 70 people in this place. And I was in this country rock and roll band, and we were doing all Jerry Lee Lewis and Hank Williams and George Jones and Johnny Cash and Elvis and Chuck Berry and all this stuff. And it's really where I cut my teeth. I was working with older musicians. They really showed me on the spot how to, get through songs and, how to perform. And so that was my very first gig, Lee's Tavern in Parkton, Maryland. It was, I probably played there for about 3 or 4 years. So finally I moved on to other things. But, for a while there, it was like once a month. It was a blast.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Is there like a piece of advice you wish you'd ignored when you started out?
Yeah, I think I worked with a few people in the PR world that had some advice that I was young and didn't really pay attention to. And the advice was that, they were trying to tell me to maybe dress this way or look a certain way or, this would help my image or whatever. And what I've learned as I've gotten older and played more shows and met other artists and things, that I think the best thing you can do as an artist is be comfortable in who you are. Don't be gimmicky unless it's truly something you like and it becomes a gimmick. I always use like Elton John or Elvis as an example. Everybody talks about Elvis, Elvis with the jumpsuits or Elton John with the big crazy costumes. Well, to them, that's who they were, and that was something they liked. They never in their career at one point said, "I'm going to dress this way to draw attention." They just did it. And I think as an artist, I think it's always good to be true to yourself. And obviously you can improve on an image or on something you like or, whatever. But I think that you can't really, you should never sell out to somebody telling you, well, if you do this, it might help your career. But if you're not comfortable in it, I think then you shouldn't do it. So I think you got to stay true to yourself. And especially too, if it's an image thing or something you like, then, hold your ground and say, no, this is me and this is what I'm comfortable in. And I think that's advice I should ignore, because a few times I listened to people that I wasn't really happy about the advice when I was young, and I took the advice. And I remember one time I tried to put blue streaks in my hair because somebody told me it would look good for a PR for a photo shoot, and luckily the photos never were taken because I put it in there and I said no. So yeah, so I think you got to be true to yourself.
Okay, what's the one question you wish interviewers would stop asking you?
I feel like I'm often asked a lot about like my roots and the music I got into when I was first started out, which I don't mind talking about. But it's one of those things that I've done, and I've done so many interviews and had articles written and reviews of my albums and my bio and stuff that I feel like that's an easy one to find. And it's funny, as I say this, I know a few of my friends that have worked with people like, Jerry Lee Lewis or Chuck Berry, and obviously they were way bigger legends than anyone ever could be. I mean, they were the fathers of rock and roll, but they even talked about that, even when Chuck Berry was, 60 years old, he was still getting asked, how'd you get started? And I haven't been doing this for, 12, 15 years, but that's a question I get a lot. And I think that's one that, I gladly talk about. I can talk about that stuff all day, but I think like that one's out there. I'd rather, I like to answer questions that are a little bit more in depth, a little bit more fun. And I think that, especially, interviewers, that do the research, they always ask this question, which I love. But I've gotten that question a lot, the roots question and what got me into it and, things like that,
Is there like a common stereotype about musicians that drives you crazy?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of stereotype that throughout people that aren't musicians, which is that you can't, it's hard to make a living at this, which that is partially true, except that I know a lot of people that do. I'm one of them. It's not a real job, which is, I think, a load of crap because, there's, there is a business sense of this whole industry that people often miss and don't realize there is unless you're in it. And if you're really in it and really doing it for, your livelihood and your income, then I think that, you have to have that business mindset. But there's definitely a stereotype that's not a real job or, you can't make a living at it. And I just think that's wrong. I think that, it's obviously it's a job, and I think that you can make a living at it, and that people that, aren't in the world, they just assume that about, musicians or, sometimes, musicians, do this because, they don't want a real job and they want, they want to party or whatever. And that's not true. I have a lot of great musician friends that are not crazy partiers and have this crazy rock star life like people think they may have. So I think there's definitely some of that kind of the, misinterpreted view of the music industry and musicians, that really work for it and work for what they do.
All right, man. Tell you what, tell us where people can buy your stuff, stream it, your websites, any place that they can hook up with you.
Yeah, of course, you can find everything on my website, joshchristinamusic.com. I got a little store on there, too. You can find my stuff on CD, vinyl, all that stuff. And all my social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, at Josh Christina Official. You can always see what I got going on there, when I'm playing, see me traveling, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I want to thank you, Josh. Great interview, and wish you nothing but the best, man.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
You're welcome. So to all the listeners out there, thank you for spending a little bit of your precious time with the two of us tonight, and thank you for being a part of the show. If you are an artist with a story to share, please reach out on the show, songwritershow.com, and fill out the interview request form. Otherwise, I hope you'll join me every single Tuesday evening as I continue to uncover these inspiring journeys behind the music. Here's to creating, connecting, and letting everyone's story be heard. Thank you so much. Have a great night. I love you all.
I was running, never seemed to end, chasing shadows around every bend, wasting my soul, a race I couldn't win, couldn't stop or remember where I've been. I was running down the highway, burning up the road, chasing every dream, never doing what I'm told. Had the pedal to the metal, and I couldn't slow down. But the faster I was moving, the more I was losing ground. One day the phone rang, the news hit me hard. He was gone and it tore me apart. Couldn't run from the pain, no place to go. Life had broken my heart. I quit the chase and left the race. The day I stopped, I won the race. I found peace and sweet release. Yeah, it was over the day I stopped. I won. Now it's your turn. The faster you run, the more you're gonna get. Dancing with the devil, playing twisted games, no spent. And you're searching for something, but you just don't know what. Trying to fill the hole with money, but you're stuck. One day the phone will ring, the news hits you hard. They're gone, it'll tear you apart. Can't run from the pain, no place to go. Life has broken your heart. I quit the chase and left the race. The day I stopped, I won the race. I found peace and sweet release. Yeah, it was over the day I stopped. I won. Now we're sitting here playing this old piano. No more damn lonely, just sleeping till noon. Chasing those shadows, just howling at the moon. We both made it, won't run, just stand no. Oh, yeah, we quit the chase, and left the race, The day we stopped, we won the race, We found peace, and sweet release. Yeah, it was over the day we stopped. We won. Yeah, I stopped running, I stopped the fight. Now I'm living easy, everything's alright. The day I stopped, I won, oh yeah. The day I stopped, I won. I won.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.